Yo, so we're here today with Joe from Joe's Drum Corner. No, I'm playing. It's not Joe's Drum Corner. That's a running joke. But we got JoJo in the building, man. He's a drummer, plays for multiple bands. He's always on the road. It's very difficult to get you to show up, man. I'm glad you're able to make it, man.
I know trying to find the days we can get together is
like literally
impossible.
Man, it's very difficult. But we got you in here today.
Yeah.
And the reason why we're doing this is because we have brand new, well, I don't know if it's brand new, but it's brand new to the app. We're releasing one of your band's albums actually onto the app as a drumless versions, man. And we thank you and your band and your record label for allowing us to do that. It's amazing.
Thank you guys.
Yep. And so you're here today to basically explain a little bit about the album. But first of all, let's get into who you are, man. How long have you been playing the drums?
Not long enough that I should be a lot better. I've been playing about 23 years. I've been playing. So,
yeah, I mean, so you've been playing since you were a kid?
Yeah, since I was a kid. I mean, when I junior high school, they made me pick an instrument in band, and they all looked so boring. And then I saw this 14-year-old kid just going into high school with a little shirt and tie, do like a little mini drum solo on a drum kit at an assembly, and my brain just exploded. I had forgotten people played the drums at all. And
that whole hip hop thing came along, and we ran into Timberland, which
yes,
I hear a lot of in your playing. I hear Timberland a lot.
That's very flattering. I'll take it because Timberland is awesome. So you know.
So I mean, like the grooves that you're coming up with. I know I'm getting a little ahead of myself, but the grooves are. I just hear Timberland. I just like Where's Missy? Where's Magoo? Anyway? Let me get off my nostalgia horse and come back.
It's okay.
Now the band that you're playing in is called Royal Coda.
Yeah. So my mantra these days is to try to create with as many humans as I can in one lifetime. And Royal Coda started last summer as a solo effort from my guitarist from another band called Sianvar, and his name is Sergio. And he wrote these songs kind of as a solo effort, and it was really nuts because I was in between tours, a studio session, and my honeymoon, and in between it all, we found 2 days that I flew into New York, and we tracked all the songs in 2 days, and we were out of our minds, so hopped up on caffeine trying to get it all done.
Wait, time out. You said in between tours, studio sessions, and your honeymoon.
I guess I mentioned three things. It can't be in between three things. I just mean those are the things that I was swimming in at the time.
Wow.
I think it was I had come back from my honeymoon, and I had like 3 or 4 days off till I went to Boston for a session, and so I flew to New York to record with Sergio. I'd been listening to the demos, which had some Friends scratch drums and some other things on them, but I didn't have time to. I didn't have a kit to play on or anything. I just went in there and. So I laid a bunch of stuff down, and I think they kind of took some of the best takes and whatnot, and we just experimented a lot for 48 hours and managed to get it done. I didn't leave feeling like it was the most polished thing on earth, but then again, you hear it after the fact, and I'm proud of what came out of it. But then a singer for my old band, A Lot Like Birds, came in and
wait a
sang
minute.
on it.
How many bands are you in?
I tour for some. I actually record and am a member of some, and then some are just session work where I go in and just lay down drums. So I've toured for bands like Chiodos, We Came as Romans, Amity Affliction. Those are like touring gigs. All of them are great people. And then I have A Lot Like Birds, who I was in for a while. But that band, I left that band last year.
Oh, so you were an actual member of that band?
I was an actual member for 7 years. Cut 3 records with them and toured a lot. Side project called Sianvar with my friend Will from Dance Gavin Dance, Sergio from Stolas, Donovan from Hail the Sun, and all these. And so then I moved on to Royal Coda now, which I am a member. We're just kind of seeing where it goes. And
aren't you guys getting ready to go on tour too?
Yeah, we're about to head on tour with Dance Gavin Dance's singer Tillian has a solo effort that he's going to take on the road, and we're going to direct support him. It starts next weekend, so it'll be this September of this 2018.
Yeah, we'll definitely have a link somewhere to the date so people can check that out, man. And so this is crazy because this is a rock music, right?
It's rock.
All the bands you've played in are rock, right?
Yeah, they're in the rock genre.
Right, and it's what's interesting to me about it, like I said, man, when I listen to your playing, I hear a lot of the hip hop influence, and you play a lot of syncopation between your hi-hat and the snare with ghost notes, and it's really incredible. So what I'm wondering is, from the time you heard that kid when you were at school or whatever playing the drums at an assembly, and to you started touring rock music, was playing I'm sure like touring in that life was always like a dream, but playing the style of music that you're playing today, was that what you saw yourself doing when you started?
No, I mean, I definitely got into jazz band pretty quick, which just got me into a more I started actually digesting improvisation and a musical vocabulary, which became important to me at a young age. But I also started actually getting paid a little, not much, but a little, to play for like, punk rock bands and stuff on the weekends. And so it was kind of joining the improvisational music spectrum with playing in punk rock bands, and then getting hired and writing some records for some heavier bands. That just happened to be where I fell, kind of. And I did like some of the music, but I think the influence, it was the jazz fusion influence. Like it was the first time I ever heard, like, everything from Chick Corea to the Mahavishnu Orchestra to Weather Report to Herbie Hancock, Lee Ritenour, a lot of those artists. When I started listening to that stuff, that all my drum teachers as a teenager were showing me and shoving down my throat, that's when I started realizing that there really are no rules, you can. I think Vinny Colaiuta was my favorite drummer growing up because he played rock like a jazz drummer and he played jazz like a rock drummer.
Wow,
that makes sense.
Yeah.
So
no, totally.
He added a certain amount of intensity to lighter music and a certain lighter touch to heavier music, and I was like, well, I could maybe get 2% of that. So
kind of what you went for.
Yeah, so I just kind of try to absorb everything and channel it into whatever it is I'm doing,
I mean, it's incredible, man. Like the fact that you've been doing this for so long. I mean, I've known you for a while. Like even when me and Sticks from the Drum Coaches would be at the studio, you had a room for a while at the same studios that we were at, and we would hear you practicing and be like, yo, JoJo, like that, he's got it, man.
Yeah, man. Just hours and hours every day of stuff that most people will never even hear or see, but it all amalgamates, like it all bottlenecks into, you practice like 1,000 things and you're really comfortable with 200 things, and then maybe 50 things really make it through onto the record and like punch people in the face. So that's...
Well, let me ask you this. This is something that I always wondered, because I'm excited to be releasing you guys' music on the app, because we don't have a lot of rock tracks right now. However, we're expanding those, especially with the help of bands like your band. And I'm wondering, what style of rock would this be considered? Because I know there's like a bunch of different styles of rock, and if you get it wrong, the rock police are going to come and arrest you.
Yeah, I know, right? Yeah, the purists somewhere will show up and take you away. I don't know. It's weird because even at a young age, genres started to become a kind of a paradox for me, because I was like, well, do you call a band something because they're a thing, or does the band become called that something because the thing existed before the band, et cetera, et cetera? And you could do that forever into infinity. The point is, I think it's good to borrow from influences. You have things that influence you, and I think genres almost come from a position of like the public or the masses or consumers or fans, people who aren't even necessarily musicians. It's easier to categorize bands because you want to have conversations about them. And so if you want to talk about bands, say, well, I'm into this kind of music, it makes sense to have at least some kind of vague-ish category to say I'm into this
parameter.
Yeah, some parameter somewhere so you can talk about it. But man, putting the bands I'm in into genres is difficult, because there'll be publications and magazines that'll call some of my bands progressive rock, and I'm thinking to myself, progressive rock, you're literally putting me you're putting me next to Porcupine Tree, you're putting me next to Animals as Leaders, you're putting me next to Yes, you're putting me next to just the Dream Theater, like from the heavy stuff to the really complex. I mean, you're putting me in the most insane box ever, which I don't even feel like I deserve, and that's not me just trying to be humble. I really don't even think I fit in that spectrum, but that's their version of like, what are you? It's kind of it's like pop rock with heavy tones with an improvisational spectrum within it. That's what it is.
Okay.
I think.
Pop rock with heavy tones with a strong improvisational texture to it. Is that what you said?
Yeah. So it's there's hooks and choruses and things you can sing along to and dance to.
Yeah.
But they're definitely more abstract parts, more psychedelic moments with lots of effects. And I never play the same way twice, which is a blessing and a curse. So
that's the improvisational aspect of it, huh? Well, I mean, when I think of it, to me, it sounds like you tend not to worry about the rules of what people consider a genre. Because I mean, I've talked to people about not just rock, but funk and other genres, and people have their rules. Like, well, if it doesn't do this, then it's not this. It has to do this for it to be this.
Right.
Do you ever worry about when you're playing something, it not? Because when I was recording you and I was mixing and everything, I was listening to I just kept thinking to myself, if you take all of the heavy guitar tones and the screaming vocals away, and you just listen to this drum kit and you listen to this groove, I can sample this and put it on all kind of records without even manipulating the beat. Just like the groove itself fits in multiple genres on multiple different songs, from the way you played your shuffle to the way that you played a lot of the grooves, man. It was just like, it made me wonder, what are your strongest influences?
Well,
other than, like, I know you said Vinny, but like, did you have any hip hop influences?
I mean, I listened to a lot growing up, but I admit I never had artists that I really stuck to.
Yeah.
But I was always around it, and I think part of it comes from the fact that I've learned over the years that for new things to exist, you have to blend other things.
Yeah.
And so I'm just sort of a weird sort of my own melting pot of ideas, and I think that comes from a lot of it comes from just the excitement about the instrument in general. I should say it's not just music; it's also the methods and systems for practicing, because I really love to practice the drums. Like outside of music, and I always want it to have a musical purpose. But outside of music, I really love the method of sitting down at a drum set and watching your limbs unfold and watching yourself go from not having independence to having independence, and developing chops and developing cool fills and phrasing. So that's always been a passion of mine on its own. And applying that musically, it's like, you could spend a year or two listening to a lot of funk records, like classic funk records. And you could listen to like nothing but Mike Clark for a while. And Mike Clark, incredible drummer. So big influence of mine. So it's possible that I listened to a lot of Mike Clark and was learning some of Mike Clark's grooves and trying to not copy him, but maybe emulate his vibe, right?
Right.
Then
now that right there is something that I strongly believe in.
Yeah.
Sometimes especially on YouTube and on the internet, we get these questions with the drum coaches and stuff like that, with everybody wanting to know exactly, not just the vibe or the feel, but the exact sticking. But sometimes just trying to get the vibe leads to you finding your own voice. And there's nothing wrong with, I don't think there's anything wrong with learning things note for note, but like eventually you kind of want to understand what it is that just makes a thing feel a certain way, right?
Yeah. In fact, on that point, my mentor, Jay Lawrence, growing up, who taught me for 12 plus years and is the reason I'm here today, one of the things that stuck with me the most is whenever he'd give me assignments, he'd say, here's a David Garibaldi book, or here's this concept, go home. And they were usually surrounding famous drummers. And when I'd come back, he'd say this, he said, I don't want to hear your exercises, but can you sound like him? Can you just groove like him? I don't want to hear the book exercises, but can you just emulate him in your own way?
Right.
And that was hard for me at the time. I was like, what does that mean? I just memorized all these grooves.
Because I think it's because what it does is it requires you to go into yourself. Like you can copy, and that's cool. It's necessary sometimes to start there.
Yeah.
It just can't be where you end.
Right.
That's just how we feel about it. And I think your teacher was really trying to get you to get the concept down. Now, who are you with this concept? Add you into this concept.
Yeah. If you were gonna play with a funk band and try to play like Garibaldi, could you do it without his grooves at your disposal? Could you just be yourself, sounding kind of like that? And so,
can you embody the feel?
Right. And so I think, and that's how you develop your own sound, man. I mean, you can't be those other people. You never will. That's that's getting into deep philosophical stuff. Like, that stuff's impossible. So you have to sound like you. You don't have a choice.
Right.
So you might as well be a really awesome Frankenstein monster of all these cool ideas from the past. That's what we get from history, is great ideas. And
right.
You become an amalgamation of that. So.
I mean, at the end of the day, there's no new elements. Well, I think they might have came up with one in the last 100 years, but there's not really any new elements, but we just keep building new stuff.
Yeah.
With the same stuff that's been here.
Yeah.
I mean, people take a piece of wood and build a bunch of different things.
It's true. Exactly. It's like the English language analogy that everybody uses now. We all speak the same language when we speak English. I guess anyone who speaks English speaks the same language, but we're all saying different things.
We're conveying different thoughts. We're just using the same language to convey our own thoughts. Yeah.
So with Royal Coda, when I'm playing live, I've changed so many of the grooves since I recorded them, and sometimes you find things after you record that feel better live, and sometimes I don't like just playing stuff with laser precision note for note. It's just not my personality. Some drummers are good at that. They're like, here's this 5-minute crazy progressive metal song that I can literally play ghost note for 5 minutes straight. And that blows my mind. That's talent. That's a whole other kind of talent. I can't memorize parts like that.
Right. But you just have the feel down and be like, just
go for it, man. I mean, that was the Tony Williams thing. You just go for it, and if you land it, awesome. If you don't, and then what happened, right? It's like,
Yo, and then what happened? I love that. Well, listen, let's get straight into some of the actual songs. There's 8 songs from this album that are going to be released on the app, and they may already be on the app depending on when you're watching this. They actually released September 1st onto the app. So one of the songs on there, I think the first song that we recorded was Anything to Save.
Anything to Save, yeah.
And we recorded some examples on some of the groove or some cool things, man. Maybe you want to talk about that.
Yeah, so the Anything to Save groove is basically, if you'll notice, I won't get into the sticking and stuff. It's really just, it's more here than it is here. It's just, when we were recording that song, that was the last song we tracked, and when we were coming up to the groove, we're like, a lot of these grooves are starting to sound very similar. A lot of kick snare hat, kind of spastic kick snare hat, tight sounding kick snare hat stuff. And so I jammed along to this part for a while to develop this loop, and Sergio's guitar does this little upbeat thing halfway through the lick, and it was really hard for me to feel at first. It felt kind of strange, and so I do this like kick snare hat, just this like linear kind of bombast that hits you, and then I play some 16th notes into a little hi-hat ostinato that happens with his guitar if you listen close. So I can't sing it back, but
we got some examples of it recorded, and if you're depending on which video you're watching, if you're watching the video that's cut up for this, then you'll see that it's there's an example that goes along with it, and you play it slow and you'll play it fast, kind of break it down for them, for you guys to get an idea. But then again, it's not necessarily just so that you could play it note for note with the track. It's just an idea that you can kind of start with, right?
Yeah, it's like, this is my approach to that riff. Someone gives you a guitar riff, it's like, well, what are you gonna do? Well, this is what I did under pressure in the moment, because these are parts that I wrote right before I tracked them, and I play them even a little different now than I did when I tracked them, because I've been playing them live a lot and improvising and fleshing them out. And so someone out there probably has cooler ideas than I do, like, bring it. It's a fun thing about music. So
yeah,
just kind of like, kind of had that breakbeat vibe with kind of lots of kick drum notes and snare notes happening in unique places, kind of a linear breakbeat vibe.
And so, like, overall, the whole album, do you feel like the whole album kind of has that type of feel, or?
Kind of does, because that's my go-to way to play. A lot of the grooves do. I really like that kind of inverted hi-hat snare thing, the kind of Steve Gadd on crack kind of thing. So you're gonna hear those like, double stroke roll inversions and sticking inversions all over my playing, because that's what I like to practice.
So let me ask you this. I'm gonna ask you one last question, and then we'll go and we'll shoot the other video where we actually, go
over the songs.
Yes. So I'm gonna do this real quick. So let me ask you one more question, man. You've been touring for a long time. How long would you say? 10 plus years or?
Consistently, it's been 8 years.
8 years, okay.
7 years.
Okay.
So
I mean, that's still
2011-ish.
That's still a long time to be on tour.
Yeah.
But
No, it is.
But let me ask you this: for all the drummers out there, because you're touring with a rock band, you're living the dream, man, and a lot of people want to know what can they do to move in that direction. They have the skill, they've practiced, they may be playing with a band or writing original music with their band right now, man. What's one piece of advice that you can give someone while going on the journey?
Well, there's a few small things that are just quick. There's like, always take lessons, always study with somebody else and get their ideas in your brain. Practice your butt off, all that kind of stuff. Those things are really important. Those are a given to me, but consider those. But something that an opinion I've developed over the last year or two, talking to a lot of drummers on the road and having a lot of people ask me, because I'm in no way a big deal, but I do have a career in the industry, which is a blessing, and I'm extremely grateful for it, is that I've noticed that people tend to either believe more in the luck side, like, oh, they're just lucky, they just happen to be found by, and some people sort of think that it's just nothing but you just grind and grind and grind, and sometimes if you grind too much, you're never even going to make it, even though you're grinding super hard. There is a balance between the grinding and an opportunity. And the thing I tell people all the time is, yes, there's an element of opportunity, of if you want to call it luck, you can, but I also think that if you network enough and if you talk to enough people and if you just work, the opportunities will show up. They will. They absolutely will. Whether you're online a lot or a presence on the internet or you're in a big city or you're gigging all the time, someone at some point will come along that needs you for something bigger than what you're doing at the time. That's going to happen. The biggest mistake a lot of people make is they're not ready for it when it comes. You have to treat your life as if it's going to happen tomorrow. And I know that sounds kind of superficial, but it's like, if you're taking lessons, practicing, gigging all the time, and you're learning all your song styles, and you're really doing your homework, and you're working on it. When I say work, I mean practice. I don't even mean like your 9 to 5. I mean like work on your instrument, work gigging, all your work playing in wedding bands, all the stuff that it takes to prepare yourself. When that thing comes along and comes knocking, you need to be ready. Because if you were not ready and you didn't have the skills or whatever it takes to get the gig, you're going to be kicking yourself for a long time. And it may not even be the biggest gig in the world, but it doesn't matter. There's enough gigs to go around. So, put yourself out there and it will come. So just be ready for it, whatever that means to you. So.
That's what's up, man. Well, listen, thank you for stopping by today before you guys hit the road. And this can't be the last time. We definitely got to have you back.
I would love to be back.
When you guys are doing new music, maybe we can get some of your other band's music on here. And
would love to.
Go from there, man. So
Sianvar is tracking a new record right now at an LP.
That's right. You just got back from Portland, right?
Yeah, I just got back.
This is ridiculous. You just got back from Portland. You're
Chris
leaving next week to go on tour.
Yeah.
How long you guys on tour? Like 2 months?
A month, and then I'll be back, and I have a few weeks off before I head to New York to track a record for a friend of mine. So
this is just the life, man.
Yeah.
So listen, where can everybody find you on social media?
The best way is just Instagram. It's Joseph Wesley Arrington, on Instagram. Or Royal Coda, Sianvar, Sianvar, Sianvar.
Yeah, we'll put it on the screen. Yeah. Oh, and I almost forgot. Tell these people about your Patreon.
Oh, yeah, Patreon. So I have another thing going on, which I'm actually not as... Turns out I'm not as good at film editing or recording as I am at drumming, which is no big surprise. But it is genuine, and the feedback I've gotten so far is that the information... The content outweighs the film production, so that's good. But I do have a Patreon. It's not massive, it's not sprawling, but if you want to get inside my brain a little deeper, I guess
you can just call it intimate then, huh?
I think it's more like a drum lesson website kind of a vibe, but through Patreon as a vessel. It's for $15 a month, I think you can get transcriptions and drum videos of all these grooves and all these things, and all the grooves from like Birds and Sianvar and all the things I've done. And then I actually break it down into note-for-note stickings and all that stuff. Although I don't do whole songs still. I don't transcribe entire songs still because I still believe in, I can't imagine the benefit of learning an entire song note for note. It's like just try to sound like somebody, emulate them. But anyway, so Patreon, it's patreon.com/Joseph Wesley Arrington.
Yep, there'll be links everywhere in the description of wherever you're watching this video.
I'm on Facebook, but my Facebook presence is like minimal because I'm rarely on there.
It just seems like a lot of musicians aren't really like.
I've kind of bottlenecked it to Instagram.
Yeah, that's what it seems like is happening these days, but I don't know.
It's just an easy avenue, and it's genuine. I'm a pretty private guy, so it's an easy way for me to just be like, hey, here's drums, music, and that stuff, and that's
where that goes.
So and but before anything else, I wanted to shout out to you guys, to Drum Tracks, because it's an amazing app. It's also a really killer educational tool. I'm not just plugging it in some kind of gratuitous way. Like, I use it myself.
That's what's up, man. We appreciate
those songs. The loops are my favorite. Man, playing along to some of those loops, it's so much fun. And I think if anyone's overlooked the educational value of, and just the fun, the value and how fun it is to play along to drumless tracks that are, some of them are really complex. It's awesome. So Drum Tracks, amazing stuff.
Thanks, man. Well, look, we're going to have you back for sure. We're going to do this again. And we'll have all your stuff linked up, and we'll catch you on the next one.
Sweet. All right.
Peace.
See you later.
Yo, thanks for checking out the Drum Tracks app YouTube channel. And if you're enjoying the videos, if you're getting anything from them, hit the subscribe button and also hit the notifications button, because we don't want you to miss anything. Because if you don't, our videos might get lost in the sauce and we can't have that. Then in the meantime, if you're looking for some more content, check out some of our recent videos. All right, fam? And we'll see you on the next one. Peace.